So the reason for that is because I find that in a lot of the work that I do, there's mismatch expectations between what's AI at the technical level versus what it is at the leadership level. So leadership thinks every software automation problem can be an AI problem. But we technical people know that that's not true. Sometimes you just need software engineering. So the book really serves as a bridge between these two worlds so that leaders now know how to use AI, where to use AI, and the technical people can also learn the business language, like what are the use cases for AI. So actually both sides of the coin, they read the book.
Welcome to the Inner Game of Change podcast, uncovering the layers of complexity of organizational change with some of the bright minds in the field. I am your host, Ali Juma, and this is the Inner Game of Change podcast. Today I'm joined by Kavita Ganesan, an AI advisor, strategist, and founder of Opinosis Analytics. Kavita has led numerous AI projects, from recommendation engines to advanced sentiment analysis systems, impacting millions of users and shaping strategic AI initiatives for major organizations like Ganesan, Verizon, and the University of Sydney. In today's episode, we will explore the transformative power of AI and its wide-reaching impacts. Drawing from her book, The Business Case for AI, Kavita will help us understand how AI is reshaping organizations and discuss how leaders, managers, and change professionals can navigate this shift to tackle both challenges and opportunities. I am grateful to have Kavita chatting with me today. Well, Kavita, thank you so much for joining me in the Inner Game of Change podcast. I am eternally grateful for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kavita. Today we're going to talk about AI, the current topic around the world. Most importantly, we're going to cover some aspects of your book, and I really like the title, "The Business Case for AI." It's a leader's guide for AI strategies, best practices, and you've peppered your book with practical applications. Let's start with, what was the impetus for you writing the book?
Yeah, so my journey in AI goes way back. Like, it started in 2005. So I've been very much on the academic research side of AI, and then I slowly grew into the business world of AI. So this was as big data was taking off as a field. This was like 2011 to 13, where AI was becoming very popular in the business world. So I jumped in, I solved a bunch of problems, and I've also seen a lot of AI failures. So a lot of the models that I was developing was making into production. A lot of the models that people around me were developing were failing. And it was not because that there were no techniques to solve the problem, so it was a difficult problem. It was more the other factors, like the model wouldn't match up to the problem, or things like mismatched expectations of what the model should produce and what the problem needed. So a lot of surrounding issues, not really technical. So over the years, I've built up a lot of knowledge within me that were like best practices that I use to implement in different AI projects. And that was in me and very much codified in my brain. So I wanted to put it out so that other people, other businesses, maybe somewhere in Australia, I'm in the US, can take that knowledge and implement it and get success in their business. So that was the idea. So get the knowledge far and wide. And a book format is very structured. You can learn, you can keep adding knowledge. So that's why I thought this is a very good format for spreading the knowledge that within me.
Now, I like how the book is structured. It is structured like almost like a manual as well. So I enjoyed it, and I'm certainly working on some of the ideas in there, and some of them validate my thinking, and some of them give me new ideas to consider. You've written the book specifically with the leaders in mind.
Mm-hmm. So the reason for that is because I find that in a lot of the work that I do, there's mismatch expectations between what's AI at the technical level versus what it is at the leadership level. So leadership thinks every software automation problem can be an AI problem. But we technical people know that that's not true. Sometimes you just need software engineering. So the book really serves as a bridge between these two worlds so that leaders now know how to use AI, where to use AI. And the technical people can also learn the business language, like what are the use cases for AI. So actually both sides of the coin, they read the book.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think the role of project managers or the nature of how they carry out their projects will be different for AI-related projects, or is that the same?
It's pretty much the same if it's a technical project.
Yep.
So what happens with AI projects is that a lot of technical people run towards developing the models. So that is a point of failure. So they don't start with a user, they start with a model. So while the technical project management aspect is about the same, in AI, they specifically not focus on the wrong things to start with. So they should always start on what the application or the user needs, and then work backwards to figure out what AI model or tool is needed to solve that problem. So there's, I would say, an inherent brokenness in how people approach technical AI projects.
I want to share my thoughts, and please critique them. I'm in public and I'm okay to be vulnerable. The way I'm looking at it now, and I'm not a technical person, but I know a lot about it, and I'm an early adopter. When I say early adopter, not as early as you are. I mean, I suppose AI was always there. OpenAI brought that to the surface very quickly, and that's the rise of it now and the hype behind it. But the way I look at it, Kavita, is that I think your point around start with the user in mind is a brilliant start. But I also think that we use AI to solve, so we identify a problem or we identify an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Is that the best way to look at it within an AI environment?
Yeah, so typically you want to identify the problems that could use software automation. It doesn't have to be AI. It can be any software automation problem within a business function or within a product.
Right.
And from there, you will know what types of tools to solve the problem. It could be just plain software engineering. And within that, there could be one component that could use maybe a call to ChatGPT to maybe summarize some part of the document. So you have to start with the use cases. Yes. And because understanding the use cases will help you prioritize. So which ones are really going to be investment worthy? So maybe the one use case provides very marginal impact, so very little efficiency gains. But another problem, which might be easily solvable with AI, may provide a lot of efficiency gains. So it helps you prioritize which ones you go after first.
So does that mean that leaders now, they need to think about the AI strategy thoroughly before they embark on implementing it? The problem with this approach is that the technology is moving very quickly. How does a leader start? Can you share with us your thoughts on actually building an AI strategy? How would you start?
So there are two parts to this, to an AI strategy. One is understanding the opportunities in your company. So that's one part. The second part is understanding your maturity in terms of AI readiness. So what the finding the opportunities will do is it's going to help you strategize better when it comes to your AI readiness. So let me give you a few examples. So let's say you find 50 software automation opportunities, and maybe out of them are 10 high impact AI opportunities. So only 10 AI problems there. And out of that, maybe 50% of the projects that you've identified don't have the data to build models. So AI systems, they thrive on data. So you need the data to support model development. But your company is not collecting data for those high impact projects. Mm-hmm. So now you have all this like high level information of what my AI use cases are, what kind of benefits it will provide, what kind of metrics to track. You can use this now in your AI readiness planning. So one of the pillars of AI readiness is data readiness. So your AI opportunities can inform what types of data you should be collecting, or if you should be digitizing your paper processes. So what exactly to do around your data. Then within the AI readiness area, you also have cultural readiness. So cultural readiness can be as simple as, do people even know what is AI? Because understanding that will try to address some of the fears around AI. There's a lot of fear around like AI takeover, people losing their jobs, because it's a real thing. Like leaders are thinking that AI can replace jobs. So how do you communicate that within the company? How do you keep the temperature fairly even within the company when it comes to using AI? So communicating plans on what you're going to do with AI, what it is, just across the board will help address some of those issues. So data readiness and cultural readiness are the biggest elements for AI readiness.
So what you're talking about here is, I haven't really seen any, from my experience, any company that has got its data readiness ready anyway. There's always, it's long years of patchwork around technology, and now it's an opportunity for a reset probably for some companies. But I'm interested in the AI, in educating the workforce about AI. That's an AI literacy you're talking about here. But you mentioned something around the fear of replacing jobs. I actually strongly believe it will. However, it will also create other jobs, or it will add more value to me as a professional. So it certainly will impact my workflows. It certainly can replace some jobs, some manual work. And I see them every day in the workplace, and I see them out there in the market. But you talked about how leaders should think about communicating that to the workforce. What have you observed from your experience, communication strategies that work and communication strategies that don't work?
Yeah, so communication strategies that don't work is painting a very futuristic picture, like starting to talk about AGI and artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence and going in that direction.
Yeah.
So that really turns people off, scares people, and even comparing AI's IQ to human IQ really can scare people off. However, when you take AI and put it in the context of your day-to-day tooling, your day-to-day workflow, like how a chatbot can improve a customer service workflow, then people start to look at it as, oh, this is more of a tool that's going to help us as employees within the company, as opposed to a tool that's going to replace us. So that, and then they are more willing to become participants in developing the tool rather than, I don't have anything to do with this type of thing.
The challenge for the leaders nowadays, Kavita, is that controlling the messaging internally is beyond, is not easy, and it's not possible because the hype is already out there in the market. So the market has already done the good things and the bad things, and it's not coming; it's already happening. And so my observation is that most leaders, the authentic leaders and the good leaders that built trust over the years, they'll probably have a better time communicating those to their workforce. But leaders that probably new to their positions and there's a lot of potential for AI, I think these people or these leaders will probably have slightly more challenging case in there. But from my own experience, I think that AI literacy, quite few things can be neutralized. Things like this is going to replace my job, or I don't know how this is going to impact my job. These are some of the educational strategies that business leaders, and it needs to be led by leaders, as your book suggests anyway, because it all starts with leadership.
Yeah. So I think we also need to be practical. So with our communication. So if there are employees whose jobs are extremely manual and it's single dimensional, that means they're doing stuff repetitively.
Yeah.
Those types of jobs are easily replaceable.
Yes.
But the leadership needs to provide a pathway for those employees to maybe upskill and go up the chain and maybe become the data producers for those AI systems instead, or the managers of those AI systems. So also creating those pathways can also lower some of the fear factors, I think.
And you mentioned the word lower. I think I'm not too sure if I can remember that, but it is a temperature that you need to lower within the workplace. What are some of the misconceptions that leaders have got about AI?
Yeah, so the one that I mentioned earlier is very common, that they think every software automation problem is AI. But in reality, most of them, like 80% of the problems, would be just software engineering problems. Maybe 20% are AI related. I mean, you can complicate software projects and then make it into an AI projects by adding prompts and all sorts of things, but that's going to put your cost astronomically high. And it's just not practical. It's not sustainable over the long term. So really understanding what is software automation and what is AI will help address some of that. So that's one area of misconception. The second thing is that I get a lot of requests on building chatbots. So because they've used ChatGPT, they think that chatbots are so easy to build for company-specific use cases. And it's just a matter of integrating large language models. But it's not as simple as that. Every workflow that you want to implement through your chatbot has to be carefully thought out and designed and implemented. It's not, because this is very specific to your company data, to your company's needs. So these are the two very common ones that I've been seeing the last couple of weeks.
So this is an important point to mention in here. Adopting an existing technology is probably a better option for some companies rather than customizing and creating their own GPTs internally. For example, we know that companies like Microsoft are trying already building those GPTs that are actually ready-made and integrated within your suite of Microsoft products. In there, they've got the studio where you can build quick GPTs in there.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that don't reinvent the wheel. There are situations where you can adopt an existing technology, so you can focus on the adoption for your people rather than spending a lot of money and time with something that is not guaranteed to work.
Correct. So I would put this in two ways. First of all, try to reuse what's already available. Like Microsoft Copilot is already available. It can do a lot of the tasks that ChatGPT can do. So try to leverage that as much as possible. And only build the specialized tools that you need for problems that cannot be solved by these existing tools. So maybe you need an internal search system for maybe cybersecurity that Copilot will not address, for example. So then invest in that and invest in building out those type of tools, very niche tools, but try to reuse what's already available.
And that's exploiting existing technology rather than creating something that may not be beneficial in the long term. But you're not saying that organizations should not experiment with the technology.
Not at all. They should. They absolutely should, because Copilot will only do some things, Copilot type tools. So you still need very domain-specific tools. Like in healthcare, it's very, very domain-specific, and you need to custom build those tools. But you have to do it in a smart way where don't assume that it's just a matter of using maybe an open source large language model or customizing ChatGPT. It's an engineering problem, which also involves AI. So it has to be done systematically.
I want to ask you a question around the arrival of AI will, like any change, will have its own impact. And the impact that we need to look at, especially myself in the business of change management, is that things like retraining and reskilling our workforce, perhaps restructuring some of our operations around utilizing the technology. What is your experience and what's your observation and from your research as well around how businesses are going about this, or the best advice for leaders to start thinking about those?
Yeah, so I would say it's a bit different for different types of businesses. So small businesses should absolutely not try to implement or custom build AI unless it's really needed, because there are already tools there that's meant for entrepreneur use cases and small businesses. So try to reuse tools. As for companies looking to improve their internal AI talent, I think look at the people you already have. Like a lot of the software engineers already have, they already have computer science training. So maybe all they need is some additional data science training, some additional AI training, and then they're ready to go and build custom solutions for your company. Same thing for like database managers. So in AI, you need a lot of data engineers. So some of these database managers can be retrained to become data engineers. So try to reuse the resources that you have, because they have the institutional knowledge of the organization. They know where things are. So it's much easier to retrain them than to hire new employees and get them into your systems.
Yeah. And that's really an important point you're raising in here, is that there's an advantage in investing in your own people and actually adding value to, and upskilling them in this particular field. What is the talent out there? I'm assuming the pool for AI or AI experts is still a small pool.
Yeah, so if you look at people trained in AI, in machine learning, with an academic background, the talent pool is very, very small. Then if you look at that, I would say like 5%. If you take off all the talent pool, 5%. The majority of the talent pool that I see are people who have used ChatGPT, generative AI tools, and they learned it on the job or just through interest. So that's like the majority of talent, they kind of only know generative AI applications.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I am one of those people that is self-trained, self-educated. And I do this every day. Like every day I will learn something. And yes, I am focused on generative AI, but that's what I need in my practice, and that's what I need with my stakeholders. But I'm always interested in learning more about what other applications, what other use cases are actually happening in the market. Is that your advice, that organizations or leaders should really open up that pathway for people to have more knowledge about this technology?
Yes, I would say they should open up pathways for their either new employees or their software engineers or people within the company to understand more the fundamentals of AI, because a lot of techniques that have not really been used, but they can be very cost effective and can provide the same bang for the buck versus using something more expensive like the GPT models. And they're equally effective. So just getting to the foundations a little bit. So going down and learning machine learning. What are the capabilities of machine learning? Or natural language processing? What are all the techniques in NLP? That'll give them, I think, a bigger leverage than just hitting their head on generative AI and unable to deploy it because it's just too expensive and bad for the environment and so on and so forth. So let your people go into the fundamentals of it.
I want to shift gear and I want to ask you about an important aspect that is always coming up when we think and talk about AI, and that is the ethical considerations when it comes to AI. What's your take on that, and how important that is for leaders to consider those things when they adopt or develop their own AI-driven technology?
Yeah, so there are different ways to look at it. So the first thing I want to think about is if you're developing an AI tool, so do you want it to be the sole decision maker, or do you want it to be the assistant? Because these two use cases have different risk levels.
Yes.
So if it's an assistant, you have a human to review. So your risks are much lower. Sole decision maker, the risks are much, much higher. And that depends on the application. So if it's like a spam filter, then maybe, yeah, the benefits outweigh the risks. So, but if it's like a healthcare diagnosis application, maybe you want to make the AI system an assistant, not the sole decision maker. So that's one way to look at it. So how are you using this AI application? And that's a critical point, because a lot of businesses think they can just replace their human worker with the use of AI, but it might not be ready. The AI system may just not be very accurate. You might still need the human in the loop until your AI system can be improved to like 90-95% accuracy. So that's one part. The other part is like, how about the mistakes that your AI system makes? How accurate is your AI system? So do you know that? So what I see businesses do is that they just build on top of ChatGPT and they release it. They don't evaluate it in any way. So this can have potential bias issues. This can have like mistakes, like on very simple things. So not understanding the performance of that solution is a risk in itself. And it's an ethical issue because you are not doing your part of quality assurance. So these are two ways to look at ethical issues around AI.
That is really a nice and easy way to remember things. And so you talked about there's a risk matrix that you look at that. You look at sort of a rule of thumb. If there's a lot of decision making by the machine, that's your high risk. And if it's a lower, it's a lower, and it's lower is the opposite way, meaning the human will make the decision.
The decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're mentioning something really important, which I'm not too sure a lot of companies are, because we already just started with this wave. Is this validation and quality control of how your program is working? In the past, we validate how a program works and then we release it and we let it go. But now we think that validation, that quality control, and the output that needs to be checked, that would need to be on an ongoing basis, because AI has got the potential to learn and make its own decisions internally. Is that am I saying this right?
Yes, exactly. So it used to be like just 5 years ago, AI systems were developed by really technical people. So like machine learning engineers, research scientists. So for us, that evaluation piece is drilled into our heads as we were training. So we have to evaluate. But now things like ChatGPT is accessible to anyone and everyone. Anyone can build on it. So they don't have that training that says, hey, you need to evaluate. But that's a very, very significant component of before putting out AI systems, which I see more and more companies not doing. So that can become a much bigger problem. And I'm already seeing it. Like there was a chatbot that authorized, an Air Canada chatbot that authorized bereavement leave when it's not supposed to do that. And the reason it did it because I think there wasn't sufficient training or evaluation after the model was trained. So they couldn't detect the problem. So things like that are going to happen more and more the less you evaluate.
Most governments now are coming up with sort of guardrails and regulations around AI.
Mm-hmm.
In Australia, we've got a lot of involuntary guardrails, but I think at some stage they'll be mandatory. And my observations are that many leaders here in Australia, they are taking this seriously, and so we're a bit cautious here in Australia. What is it like? What's the scene like in America when it comes to the guardrails and the expectations from the government?
The government has published an AI risk management framework. Like, what are the things to look into when developing and putting out AI solutions? But it's just a recommendation. It's not a mandated thing. So I don't think many people are paying attention to that as yet, but they are reading the risk management framework at least. But I don't think there is any strict guidelines that people are following right now.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think at some stage, maybe smart business leaders will self-adopt their own sort of ways to actually control it. In my head, I'll share with you an image, and you might laugh at me, but just humor me for a second. In my head, I'm thinking the future for the AI-driven programs, it's like a product that at some stage to quality control and to check and evaluate the effectiveness and the ethical output of a solution. An organization, it's in the best interest of an organization now when they build something, then they have a clear, it's almost like a product on a shelf in the supermarket. If you buy any product, it's got all the ingredients in there, how it was made, where it was made. I think we're going into that particular time where at any one time, I should see information about any product, who built it, the qualification of those that built it, how do we measure success, how do you measure effectiveness, what's the validation process. Am I thinking too much about this?
No, I think that's absolutely right. So I think for every AI solution that's put out there, there should be disclosure on what type of data this was trained on. How do you evaluate the accuracy? At least internally, there should be some evaluation metrics that's established within the company, so they know how this solution is actually working, even if they don't want to make it public facing, like fully.
Yeah.
So data source, model performance at a high level that a user can understand, and the risks, like disclosing the risks of using their tool, is, I think, very, very necessary. So, like, let's say you have a chatbot that's providing psychological advice. You want to specify the risks. So always take this advice with a grain of salt. Yeah. Don't fully believe the advice. So just simple things like that can go a long way.
That's fantastic. Take the advice, but don't take it seriously. I always with
a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because these are probabilistic models. They are guessing answers. It's not 100% sure, like a physician, for example.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we humans, sometimes we provide advice, but I've never seen a specialist saying this is 100% what's happening. They always say this could be and this might be. And also my observation nowadays, Kavita, is that, for example, I use Copilot and I use ChatGPT and I use other applications. They do say there that I might not be 100% accurate. So that's already built in the models. But what we're talking about here, if you've custom built your own internally within an organization, just be mindful that you need to offer all of that information upfront to users, to give them, to respect their wisdom, and also provide them with a general guideline, but there's a likelihood that this might not be 100% accurate.
Yeah, just like how for pharmaceutical companies, they have to put out a disclosure. I think AI systems need to put out a disclosure solutions.
Fantastic. I want to ask you about the strategies leaders would need to look at to measure success of AI initiatives within their organizations. Where do they start? Do they work in the normal sense of what the problem we're trying to solve and whether that problem is being solved or the opportunity is being realized?
Yeah, so the first part would be understanding the model's behaviors. So is it able to complete the task that it's supposed to complete? So let's say it's a summarization problem. How accurate is it against some ground truth data? So just having that understanding of that model's performance, that's one part of it. But the model itself is not the end. It's a means to achieving some sort of business success. So that ties to the problems, the use cases, pain point. So are you trying to not increase, but decrease the time to complete the task? So you want to see what is your current baseline. So how long does it currently take versus after you deploy the model, what is the improvement? So tracking metrics that are directly tied to the pain points would help you measure the success of the AI solution. Then there's also the user success, which is whether the user perceives this AI solution to be a valid solution for them to use. So imagine you put out an AI solution, but the user has to take 10 additional steps or 10 additional clicks to get to the AI output. So that's going to put them off and maybe go back to the manual way of doing things because that's so much easier. Just one click and done. So you'll have to see what the user thinks about the AI solution. And the way to do it is like interview them, see what they think about the AI solution. And sometimes the AI models can make really silly mistakes that might not have been caught during like validation. So then the user will be able to provide that feedback, which you can then go back and fix. So the user component is also important. So we have model success, business success, and the user success. So all three must come together.
User experience is one of the most important thing in my head when it comes to those. Yeah. And there's no point of achieving a business needs, but then the user experience is actually a negative one. So what you're saying is that they're all going to have to be in harmony with each other.
Yes, all have to come together, and then you'll see true AI success, like people really appreciating the solution.
Fantastic. I am aware of the time, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this. You've taught me quite a few things. You've also given me the impression that I have some good ideas about AI. I love your book. It's a wonderful handbook. It's probably one of the best books that I've read about AI, and I keep referring back to it. So it's not just a book, is actually, for me, is a reference book. I want to ask you, you've been in this gig and this business for a while. Mm-hmm. What's your prediction, at least for the next 5 years?
So I think next 5 years, I think the hype will kind of die down, and businesses will realize that they need to really rethink AI. It's not all about chasing the latest large language model. It's about having a strategy in place before figuring out which AI solution is going to solve the problem. So I think that's going to be the trajectory for the next 5 years. But on the research side, I think there'll be more progress around like common sense reasoning around AI. So right now, it's highly data driven. So the more data, the more parameters, the larger the model. So this has been the focus the last couple of years. But now people are scaling back and they're thinking, how can we use smaller models because they're more efficient, they're better for the environment. So how can we build these smaller models? And how can we infuse common sense reasoning, which AI systems don't have today? So it's just learning from data. It doesn't learn like humans. So how can we replicate that? So I think that would be the progress on the research side.
Well, my son gave me a wise analogy the other day. He heard me talking over the phone around models and language models. And he said, just like at McDonald's, there are, large fries, medium fries, and smaller fries. And he said, so smaller fries, easy to eat, and you're not going to feel bloated after that. And I said, well, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that analogy, language in the fries and the sizes. And but that's your AI from a mind of a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So
that is so true.
yeah.
The small ones are so much easier to deploy. They are more cost effective. So why not?
There you go. That's your for your next TED talk, Kavita. You will be using the fries analogy, and don't forget to mention my name. One last question that I usually ask my guests, Kavita. What would be your advice for people like myself in the business of change and communication when it comes to AI?
I would say educate your customers, educate people talking to you, like help them realize what is AI really, what it's capable of doing, and what is not AI, and also the risks. Like, don't just blindly believe the answers generated from AI system. Do your fact checking. Like, I have peers that just use ChatGPT and they just copy paste without even reading it. They trust it 100% because they don't have that basic education that we could provide.
Adopt and validate. Adopt but validate is the...
Adopt but validate, yeah.
Is the mantra that I always look at. It's been fantastic having you in my in a Game of Change podcast, Kavita. We're going to put all the information about you in the podcast content. I hope I can get you back at some stage later next year and see where you are and talk about the AI and the progress, and that will be a fascinating thing to watch. I do believe that the hype will come down, but maybe it will come down not because of an anticlimax. It will come down because it becomes part of the language that we use every day. So it's no longer something really big. But I take your point around the hype. I reckon the next couple of years that rethinking of the strategies will happen.
Yeah.
Currently we're cautious, but in a couple of years, lots of leaders will start thinking about, maybe we need to take a step back and really think with this now and seeing the potential of what it can do.
Yep. And I see companies hitting brick walls because they don't have a strategy. They've tried the tools, but they don't know where to use it now.
Yes.
So you do need a strategy.
Yeah, fantastic. And leaders are all about strategies, as you would know, Kavita. That's why leadership is such a critical piece, and that's why you've written your book for the leaders. You're starting with the leaders first. It's been a pleasure having you in my Inner Game of Change podcast, Kavita. Until next time, stay well and stay safe.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode valuable, remember to subscribe to stay updated on upcoming episodes. Your support is truly appreciated. And by sharing this podcast with your colleagues, friends, and fellow change practitioners, it can help me reach even more individuals and professionals who can benefit from these discussions. Remember, and in my opinion, change is an enduring force, and you will only have a measure of certainty and control when you embrace it. Until next time, thank you for being part of the Inner Game of Change community. I am Ali Jama, and this is the Inner Game of Change podcast.